This is episode 18 of Mind Your Job with Sari and Samara. Today we're going to do a little shameless plug for the book, Painless, which my staff and myself wrote about how to open a dental office. And we have a very special guest, Eric from Eskow Law, who's going to talk a little bit more about changes in the law, how to get your practice open, and I'm going to interject with crazy factual stuff, and Sam is going to interject her comments. But if you're opening a practice or you're buying a practice, it is really a good resource. It will help you. It gives you timing. It gives you good information. And Eric's going to give you really good information of how not to step in that terrible pothole in the street and sort of deflate your tire, your ego, and everything else. So,
you know what I like about books there is that it has topics that are very specific. So it's not as though you need to open it and read it page by page to get the information you need. You can go to the area that you need that you're dealing with at that time as well.
100%.
It's a workbook. It's a manual.
It's kind of like, I liken it to this, and Eric can kind of qualify this. Dentists are dentists. You want to go to them to fix your teeth. They need a team of people when they're opening their location so that things don't go bad.
Yeah.
Take it away, Eric.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity. Just quickly, our firm specializes on healthcare transactions, so buying and selling practices is right up our alley. We focus on papering the transaction. And I think what you're getting to with your book is so important because we can get the paper exactly right. All the words can be right, but if there isn't alignment on the operational expectations on how to actually do it and how are we going to talk to the employees and how are we going to transition the practice management system, how are we going to let the patients know, it's a train wreck afterwards. So to the extent that people can look at your book and say, hey, here's how I now operationalize all these legal documents that the lawyers have put in place, that's a fantastic inroad for you. So I encourage people to pick up your book and use it. And anytime they're either setting up, they're doing a de novo, or they're going to buy a practice. Because the papering it is one side, and when I've seen things get messy, it's post-close when nobody's talking to each other anymore, and they think that they haven't transferred the website, or it just can be messy. That's when it gets messy.
I think it gets messy. There's no planning, and you can have the greatest team of people. You can have the greatest banker, greatest accountant, greatest legal team, a consultant, a real estate agent who's amazing. Everything's going right. And then it's like, oops, I'm an associate with my NP1 number somewhere else. And I'm going to start credentialing myself, but I didn't credential with an NP2 number. And now all my checks are going to my employer. And how do I untangle that? I mean, there is there's like water finds its level here, but it doesn't have to if you plan. I mean, the other thing I see that is a huge problem for dentists is they do not know how to put a business plan together. They think they do, but what the bank is really looking for is how they're going to get their money back and what do the financials look like? And do you have a plan for how soon you're going to add employees, which, you know, your two biggest expenses when you first start your practice are going to be your rent and your employees. So how are you doing that? Like, even how am I doing the lease assignment? When am I paying attention to my bump up in my lease? Is my lease a triple net lease or a gross lease? What am I going to owe at the end of the year if the real estate taxes go up? Like, all these crazy matters that you're a dentist. That's what you spent the last 4 years doing, is being a dentist. You don't know about all the business aspects. And guess what? The problem is a lot of these dentists don't find this out till it's late in the day.
Yep. And to your point, to support the bank's underwriting, you need the cooperation of the selling doctor. He's going to have to show his financials for the last few years. He's going to have to connect you with the landlord and get the landlord involved. And here's the lease. Here's what the CAM expenses are. Here's what we expect the CAM expenses to be. there's no rental increase. Hey, by the way, there's only 2 years left on this lease term, and the bank's going to want at least 7 years. So, landlord, are you willing to extend when you do the lease assignment? Can we add extra term into that lease? Because the bank wants to have all of that in certain writings to make sure that they'll get their money back, and it's a secure investment and secure loan for them. On the NPI numbers, this is something that goes along with any transaction. I'm going to say most all transactions. There's a few occasions where you may not use this, but when you're buying a practice, there's not just the asset purchase agreement. That's like the main document, but you have disclosure schedules, you have employment agreements, you have lease assignments, you have a few other documents, but one that is often shouldn't be overlooked, and we make sure it's in all of our deals, is what's called a transition services agreement. Because you have the buyer who's credentialed with a whole bunch of third-party payors, and you have the seller who's credentialed with all those payors, and the buyer's coming in and they're not credentialed. And Sari, how long does credentialing take? Like 30, 60, 90
90 to
days,
120 days.
sometimes longer, right?
Depends on how good you are with your paperwork.
That's right. So you don't want to do that like the day you buy your practice, right? You have to start that
Right.
months in advance. And oftentimes you're not going to have that credentialing done by the time you purchase the practice. So we put in place this transition services agreement, which essentially allows the buyer to continue billing under the seller's NPI numbers and then collecting the money. And that way you have continuity of care, you're not losing patients, etc. And this document, it works essentially like a lease back of employees, right? The buyer has purchased all the equipment, owns all the employees, but isn't credentialed to do the services. So it lets the selling entity use the employees and the space and the equipment to provide dental services in exchange for the revenues that are collected for those services. And we typically see them for durations of 90 days. During COVID, we went out to like 18 months, but usually 90 days to a year is what we see for those. And it allows a little bit more of a smooth, seamless transition.
It's interesting that you pointed this out because it seems to be like the number one problem that I have. I refer to this thing called euphoria buyer syndrome,
Yeah.
which I'm so excited I'm buying a practice, but I'm so clueless about what I need to be doing to actually get this place up and running appropriately
Yeah.
and make sure that I have all the things that I need. You talked about that. Does that spread over to IT too? IT services? Like, how do we manage IT services in a buy sell?
Yeah, that's all. For the few deals I've seen really go sideways afterwards, they hinged around IT and transferring patient records,
Yeah,
websites, etc. I think the two parties really need to sit down and talk, right? Because it's not
right,
always going to be we're going to flip the switch off on day one and flip the switch on day two. There needs to be coordination and there has to be cooperation. So I like to build into the purchase agreement a transition section that it doesn't have to
right.
be overly complicated or overly long, but it basically says, hey, the seller is going to remain available for 90 days, maybe 5 hours a week, either in person or phone, to help transition all of those things over. I don't like having to swap money for IT services that run for maybe an extra week or two before they're switched. Like you're starting to argue about pennies and nickels, and you'll spend more time trying to do the bookkeeping for that than it's worth. So build in
Right.
maybe a 60 or 90-day transition period to allow the two parties to cooperate to shift all those services over, and to have the seller be around to help introduce patients to the new owner, help them when they get stuck with passwords or the security cameras aren't working or the code on the door. Just have them be available for no additional compensation, but just to be there to help the buyer have a successful start, right? I think the buyer and the seller should both want the surviving practice to be successful, right? Those were the patients of the seller. And if they cooperate, there's a greater chance of success there.
I mean, you really have to appeal to the seller's legacy, because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, what sellers don't understand, I say this all the time. If you're a dentist, that's your identity. It's your identity. You're losing your identity if you're not staying with the new buyer as a dentist,
Yeah.
as a dentist emeritus, whatever it is.
Part of your name. It's Dr. So it's who you are.
Yeah, it's who you
Right.
are. And I mean, you don't know how many times I see somebody flip the switch, sell their practice. And I'm not kidding you, 6 months into the sale of their practice, they're like, do you have any jobs for me? What can I do? I'm
Yeah.
about ready to strangle my wife, who I love, or my husband, who I adore, but I'm bored and I miss the connection with human beings and keeping them well. Do you see this too?
So that's a great question. And, we've represented on both the buy side and the sell side. And we've done so for both corporate deals, DSOs, as well as private doctor to doctor sales. And on the buy side, it's always just about the numbers, right? You've been dealing with the banks, the lenders, crunching the numbers, doing your quality of earnings. And it's just a very business oriented transaction. And on the sell side, it's all of that, plus the frustration of having to provide all of these financials, providing all of the stuff that the QVs are asking for, diligence items, equipment inspections. You have to deal with all of that. And then it's also, you have to keep in mind, it's an emotional process for a seller. They've oftentimes built this practice from scratch over 20 or 30 years, and now their career's coming to an end. And at the time of the LOI, there's a lot of excitement about the selling the practice, getting a big paycheck, retirement, going off on a nice cruise. But then they start to realize, as you get closer to closing, what am I going to do tomorrow? If they're not staying on as an employee for some period of time, what do they do with their free time? And there gets to be a lot of angst and emotion around that. And that's not something that we can help with too much, but I think it bears well for sellers to think through that, right? What is that transition process gonna look like?
It's one thing that I do is I will meet with somebody every week for about 6 months. It's coaching and counseling, as sad as it is, and it helps them, because when they're ready to pull the trigger and they find that buyer, I've already walked through, what does this look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? What do you see? What do how are you going to feel when you see patients in the street and they miss you? And you're no longer under any HIPAA. You're just a person just like they are. They're not your patient, even though they are your patient. I mean, how is it going to feel for you? And it's really been interesting. Some of the really strongest people that I've ever worked with that have unbelievable conviction, and they're in tears, hysterically crying. And I don't mean that to be mean, but like, you don't realize the emotion's going to come over you. It's like losing a parent, a child, a part of you where, like you said, you might have started the practice on your own. But if you've been somewhere 15 to 30 years, that's a lifetime.
Yeah. And add on top of that, what's their financial picture look like? Where's their income? Like, what's their cost of living? And is the sale price going to be enough to sustain them? Or are they like, I can't afford my nice house on the beach and the boat and all that stuff now, right? That gets to be a worry.
It's unfortunate too that doctors do not get cajoled enough to find good financial expertise also before they sell. So they can do backdoor Roth, they can, safeguard stuff, all the things that sort of happen. They don't seek out the right advice. They sort of are with the same accountant. I love your accountant for your regular accounting purposes. You get $1.5 million. I don't love your accountant for advice on that. I like you to go see some financial people that can figure out how they can help you sustain that and derive income from that from anywhere from 7 to 10% annualized that you're not extra taxed on again.
Yeah.
But they don't want to do that.
I'm a big advocate of that as well, Sari. And I think for the newer associates that are starting out, don't wait until you're 30 years into your career to get that financial advisor. Sure, it's better late than never once you're selling and you have this cash and you need to talk to somebody. But get involved with somebody now, that a financial advisor, one that knows healthcare, and two is going to want to grow along with you, right? And help you plan for that exit in 20 years.
I mean, and the other thing is I ask around for those people because, and I would interview at least no less than 3 from
Yeah.
trusted friends, lawyers,
Yep.
accountants, and find out, they're going to charge you. So like the big shocker isn't going to be that they're taking 1%. Oh, and day one, when you drop your 1.5 million down, they're taking that 1%. So expect that $15,000 to go day one. You're paying them for them to do their job. But you also want to know what happens if they don't perform the way they're supposed to. I would have
Yeah.
some sort of clausing in your thing that says, you can get my $15,000 day one, but if you don't perform and make me 10% minimum a year, then I don't have to pay you my 1% the next year, which makes everybody sort of have skin in the game, not just you. Shouldn't always just be about you paying someone. And I think what is offensive to a lot of specifically dentists is everyone's got their hand out. The vendor, the accountant, the lawyer, sorry, the consultant, me, sorry to myself. But we're really do find people that care about you, that answer the phone at 8 o'clock at night for you, that will give you part of their soul for you to feel good and comfortable.
Yeah.
Because I can't stress this very basic fact enough.
Yep.
You need that person who's going to care more about you than you do about yourself, because the roller coaster you're about to get into is huge. And then I got another question for you that's going to blow you out of the water. What happens when I sell my practice, but I keep my real estate, but I know eventually the buyer of the real estate is going to be the person who bought the practice? How do you handle that when you're doing a transaction? Like, what kind of future proofing for the buyer and the seller do you do there?
Yeah. I think it's a great scenario where the seller owns both the practice and the real estate, right? Because he can sell the practice, still own the real estate. As part of all those transaction documents, I mentioned the lease assignment, or, we put in place a new lease. So now the seller still has ongoing income and revenue from owning the real estate. I think that's a great thing. And then you can build into that lease right of first refusal or an option for the new practice owner to buy that at some point in the future. And then everybody has the flexibility and the options to keep that possibility open.
I mean, I had a person buy a practice in Lansing, Iowa, maybe like 6 years ago. And the owner did not want to sell the real estate. So I made this crafty comment. I go, okay, well, why don't we get an assessment on the real estate now, get an appraisal, and tell him that when he's ready, we'll pay 5% over whatever the appraisal is today. He's like, really? We can do that? I go, well, bird in the hand is worth more than 2 in the bush. If this guy's got to find someone to buy this piece of real estate who's an uninterested party, pay real estate brokers 6% of the income, nobody gets anything out of it. Why wouldn't we just sell it to the person later on, let him make his little income in retirement? Everyone feels good about it. And then you buy it less than market value, but he's not going to sit there and hedge on that. He wants to just know that in 5 years, he wants his $600,000 and he's done. He doesn't have to find anyone to sell it. It's an easy transition. You've already written it up in a document. You really don't have to hire much of an attorney to do it because you already have it done, and just get the transaction done with the bank. And you're making money, so you're in a better cash flow position to get a better rate and a better loan on the real estate. And if you're owner occupying 51% of it or more, you get a better rate from the bank anyway, because you're the owner occupier of it.
Yeah. I like it. I think it's a great formula. So yeah, there are lots of creative ways to kind of push that sale down the road, but keep the option open for both buyer and seller.
I mean, it's better than like I see a lot of things. These are older doctors, so the last thing you want also is you can put some probate information in there that the buyout gets to happen as the probate's getting done. And that
Mhm.
supersedes anything in the estate planning, if God forbid that the person that's selling their practice,
Yeah,
you can do that too. It's really smart stuff to do because probate, as we all know, can take
No,
forever.
yeah,
that's
for
really
sure.
helpful.
Yeah.
It is. It's not something people would
Sometimes you have to
understand.
stand on the box.
That is true. Eric, I wanted to ask one question about something we talked about earlier, and that is the idea of the transactional. Give it to me one more time.
The
Service agreement.
transition services agreement.
Transition, yeah. And if that's a newer concept, what risk does, I mean, I understand the benefits of it. What risk would the seller have in agreeing to do that? And
Okay, yeah. That's a
how do
good
you
good
assure them?
question. I think the concern, and we build this in every time, right? That document exists for the benefit of the buyer.
Right.
So if there's harm, damage, injury, financial or otherwise to the seller, maybe the third party payers come back and they don't like it and they have a clawback of funds or something. We build into that agreement, and it's a fair provision to put in an indemnification provision that says any financial harm that comes to the seller for entering into this transition services agreement, the buyer will indemnify the seller
Okay.
for that. So that insulates the seller a bit and gives them comfort and peace of mind that they're in a little bit of a safe place, because again, this is solely for the benefit of the buyer to keep
Right. So I
billing.
was wondering what's the benefit for the seller at that point, or how do you reassure them
Yeah.
that they are still going to be protected?
Yeah, that's the protection piece. And then I think the benefit to them is just that they have peace of mind of continuity of care for their patients that they've grown attached to over the last 20 years and that they care for. It's been a rare occasion when I've seen a seller not care about the ongoing patients and, hey, are my patients going to be in the right hands? Are they going to be well taken care of with this buyer? That's just par for the course that they have that concern.
And it is a finite window of time as well. You said it's like 90 to
Yeah.
100 days, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah. In
Yeah.
theory.
My opinion is if I'm the new owner, I'd want 180 days because I can't get my shit together.
Oh, well.
I can tell you, I can barely get home to eat dinner on time. I mean, you
Yeah.
know, Eric,
Yeah.
how often have you
This,
tried to catch someone from 9 to 5? A
yeah.
doctor. It's a
No,
joke.
yeah. It's early mornings or late in the evening. Yeah.
We're going to
Or
ask
or
you,
maybe some of them have that lunch window that they're willing to sacrifice to get on the phone with a attorney or a consultant.
we're going to ask you one more question because I think this is a really important aspect of, besides the fact that you are incredibly smart, creative, thoughtful, and a very, very good attorney.
Mm.
Talk to me about flat fee and why you guys are different than a regular, if I used another attorney and I'm paying them
Oh,
$700 an hour. Talk to me
yeah.
about how you guys bill your services out, because I do think it's really important for people. You're on here because I love you and I'm very, very close with you. And we've talked cases and worked cases before, but I want people to understand that one of the reasons I would even offer somebody or refer someone to you is because the costs associated with legal can get crazy, and you guys
Yeah.
do a really good job of keeping that in line.
Yeah. No, I appreciate the kind comments. And I think the pricing is a good question that we cover that in every introductory call that we have. And I think it's a differentiator. I'm seeing more firms starting to do it, but we do all of our transactions on a flat fixed fee basis.
Oh,
Now,
cool. It is
we'll
really cool.
scope the project out and we'll look at maybe the LOI and we'll get ideas to what structure and what documents need to go into that. And then each document has a fee, and then that allows us to expand or contract based on deal complexity, right? But we do the flat fixed fee for a few reasons. I used to be a consumer of legal services. I was a general counsel for a DSO, and I used a couple of firms to do my legal work that I outsourced, mergers and acquisitions in one example. And when I used the hourly firm, it would always be over budget. I would get the invoice 2 or 3 months after a transaction closed. Um, it would be 20 or 30 page long invoice, and it had billing increments of 6 minutes. And sometimes there's 2 or 3 associates on a call that I'm paying for. So I'm paying 3 times now. I'm paying for paralegal time. Every time I'd get that invoice, the CFO would blow a gasket, and you'd be like, this is ridiculous. And it was very frustrating. When we set a fee with a client, the client has certainty that that's the fee. We don't come back and say, this was more complicated, this was more difficult, it took more revisions, this deal took 6 months instead of 3, and you need to pay us more money. The fee is the fee, and it's set, unless we agree to change the scope and all that stuff, but that rarely happens.
Right.
So we bring financial certainty to the client. We get paid at closing, so we don't take retainers, and they don't need to come out of pocket up front. And then they can budget to it, and they can let their lender know, hey, here's my legal fee, and that flows into how much left is for working capital, etc.
That is
Further, by doing the flat fixed fee, we are now financially aligned with our client. Like, I'm aligned to be efficient in my work and get that back over to them. Whereas on the hourly model, you're not so financially aligned. You're incentivized as a lawyer to take longer on doing documents and reviews and phone calls and maybe chit chatting and then billing for that chit chat time. So we like providing financial certainty that you can budget to. We like being financially aligned with our client, and it allows us to treat each deal essentially the same, right? Whether it's a $250,000 deal or a $2.5 million deal, the calculation, the fee's not always going to be the same, because usually the bigger the deal, the more complex and more documents, but the equation to get there is the same.
that whole no surprises thing is
And-
fantastic.
Well, I think it also allows people to like get educated about
Right.
things that they need. Like, I had an attorney, it was $750 an hour. I never
Yeah.
talked to the attorney. I
Yeah.
got to the closing of something. I didn't know anything because I didn't ask anything, because I was so conscious of the bill. This allows somebody at least to like come at you with a couple questions and educate them so that they're a smarter business person later on, and then come and ask you for other stuff, because they don't feel like they're going to get a bite out of crime every time they open the mail. Like,
Yeah.
every time I opened the mail and saw the bill, I would have a heart attack. I was like, I should have gone to law school, right?
It bothers me to send long, complex legal documents to a dentist who's probably going to have to read them at night when they're tired or over their weekend, and not feel like they have me as a resource to answer questions about my legal documents. Hey, doctor, read a bunch of this stuff, and then if you have questions, I'm going to bill you for that and charge you. Like, they're my legal documents. I'm going to spend as much time with you as needed to make sure you're comfortable with those documents. I've had one doctor who actually wanted to do a page turn. We did paragraph by paragraph through the purchase agreement. Now, granted, we have to do that over several sessions because it takes a long time. It's not a preferred way of doing business, but we did it, right? And that brought that doctor a lot of comfort. And most doctors, we find, they want to see the red lines. We also provide a very thorough summary of the purchase documents. They read them over a couple of days a weekend. We get on a call to address concerns, questions they have in an hour, hour and a half, and then that's about it. So usually they want the high points and the wave tops, but the flat fee gives us the flexibility to do a deep dive if they want.
Do you work in all 50 states?
We do deals across the US. Yep, absolutely.
We love that.
We're headquartered out of Boston. I'm luckily here in my remote office in Florida, but we do deals across the US and partner where we need to.
Okay, Eric, we're going to put all your information in our little blurb. Thank you so much. You've clarified a lot of points. We'll probably have him back, you guys, so don't
Hope
get
so.
nervous because there's
Yeah.
always topics of the day. But honestly, this is one of the better attorneys out there for you for so many reasons, but you're going to learn a lot. And I think the most important thing isn't how much money you spend. It's that when you have a problem, you have somebody who's on your side and they're going to come up with a very good solution and give you good advice so that you don't step in it, which at the end of the day, it's the last thing we want.
Right. The trust building that you do, Eric, is wonderful, and it really benefits all of your clients on all sides.
100%, especially that transition part of it. You have no
Correct.
idea how many times someone like runs to my door and says, "How fast can you credential me?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, do you have an MPI-2 number?" And they're like,
Yeah.
"What's that?" I have an
Yeah.
MPI-1 number. And I'm like, "Well, if you think that you're going to be putting everything through an MPI-1 number, I hope your employer really likes you because they're going to be getting you paid for 2 different locations at one." And they're like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "How is that fair?" I go, "Because do you think the insurance companies care?
Yeah.
They're getting more from it anyway. So they
Right.
don't care where it's going to." But
Yeah.
thank you again for coming with us.
Happy to be here. Hopefully your listeners find a couple of nuggets of value in there, and I'm always happy to talk to any of them if they get my contact information from you.
And if you guys need anything, you can always contact me and I will forward you to Eric. We're very good friends. Besides him being one of my favorite lawyers, he's also my very good friend. So mind your job.
Mind your job.